More young children are increasingly finding themselves in technologically savvy environments. This requires that most of them improve their skills for personal development. Most of these grade R children need guidance to navigate the tech world for their safety. Joining us is Professor Kerry-Lynn Thomson from the School of IT at Nelson Mandela University. Professor Thomson, appreciate your time this afternoon. Let's start off with the motivation in the initiation of this grade R cyber safety project, and what specific concerns or incidents prompted the need for a cyber safety awareness program.
Good afternoon. Thanks so much for having me. So as part of the research team at Nelson Mandela University, or CRICS, the Center for Research in Information and Cybersecurity, we do a lot of research into cybersecurity awareness. And we started seeing that a lot of the cyber safety initiatives out there for school children were aimed at older kids, at least 10 years and up. A lot of reading required, a lot of text-heavy material, all very relevant. But we asked the question, who's looking after the foundation phase learners? Who's looking after the little ones who are already online in most cases as well? So we looked at the foundation phase and we said, well, let's start in grade R and develop material for them in order to help them navigate the online space. Because there's a lot of threats out there threatening all our kids, topical issues being cyberbullying. Often said that the biggest threat to our kids online is other kids. Looking at things like inappropriate content that the kids all too easy to access, sexually explicit material, violent material. How do the kids handle this when they come across it? And then, of course, cyber predators, the stranger danger, how to teach kids that not everyone they meet online can automatically be trusted because they may not even be who they say they are. So even though the grade R pupils may not be fully online yet or experiencing cyberbullying or inappropriate content, we decided to develop some material that can start laying the foundation of a cyber safety culture and teaching them the characteristics, we call them the superpowers, that they'll need to navigate the online space.
Now, grade R is about 6 years of age, so obviously you're trying to protect these kids from what will be a gap going forward. So let's go up 2 or 3 years, or maybe even 5 or 6. Is there a gap in there? I mean, have you established that, you know, if we'd started this process 5 or 6 years ago with the 11 and 12-year-olds, that we would have saved them from a huge amount of danger?
That is what we're trying to do at this point. Absolutely. If we'd started a number of years ago, you know, it takes time to teach the kids these kind of concepts and how to navigate the online space. So we're starting now, and, you know, we're hopefully looking at this generation of kids and saying, well, we're giving them the real basics of what they need to be good digital citizens, those characteristics of, you know, courage, kindness, respect, honesty, safety. And there is, you know, for the older kids, there is material out there. But we said, you know, why wait for the kids to develop potential bad habits as they go forward in terms of cyber safety? Because kids are super proficient in using technology, but the safe use of that technology is not intrinsic to them. So, you know, it's now, as you mentioned, the 11, 12-year-olds, they've been online for years, but not necessarily doing that in a safe way. So that's why we're saying, well, let's start now. Let's get the ball rolling with these grade R learners. And ideally in future, we'll start building the material then grade 1, grade 2, and grade 3 as well.
So, Professor Thomson, what are the red flags that these 6-year-olds are looking out for? And what sort of skills are they learning to be able to identify that, you know what, this is a no-go area, I mustn't play in that area? And then secondly, to be able to report to mum or dad or the guardian and say, this is what I'm encountering.
Absolutely. So that plays into the inappropriate content, that it's not a matter of if, but when our kids are going to stumble across this you know, the inappropriate content that's out there. And the message we give them in grade R, you know, obviously remembering they're in grade R, they're not reading, they're not writing. We've really simplified it to be age appropriate. So we don't use the term inappropriate content with them. The message is basically to say that when you're online and teaching the concept of what does online mean, so when you play YouTube, you might be playing games online, And we really say, if you see something that makes you upset, or scared or afraid, then you need to have the superpower of courage to speak up, and tell your mom or your dad or your teacher, don't hide it. Don't think that you've done something wrong. Really speak up, and voice your concern about the whole thing. And to back it up, we've got the Cyber Smart Squad, these characters that we've developed, based on the big 5 characters in South Africa, to contextualize it to South Africa. And Letu the lion, for example, his superpower is courage. So, in these cartoons, in these narratives, we say to them, be like the lion, be brave. If you see something that you don't like, it makes you feel upset, tell someone about it, to open those dialogues between the kids and a grown-up.
Now, the one element that I've always found missing is how we as parents get involved. So we're teaching these little ones how to protect themselves. How do we as grown-ups protect our kids?
That's an excellent question, and that's a whole other dimension to this program. So we want to be engaging with grade R teachers, but we don't want it to remain in the schools. We want these kind of concepts and these narratives and the conversations to move into the homes as well. Because it doesn't help us. We say to our kids, go and tell an adult that you're being cyberbullied. Go and tell an adult of what you've seen. And the adult, when told, doesn't know what to do. And it's often a very difficult space for parents to navigate and to know what to do. So that's a further element to the program where we'll be engaging with parents with workshops to say, this is what your kids may come home with and want to talk about. Here's what you can actually do. And for the parents, it'll be more from a technical aspect, in order to block content, in order to know if there's something, if their child's being bullied. What do you do? Who do you speak to about these kind of things? So that is a whole different ball game for the adults, because of course we want our kids to be able to tell adults and for the adults to know what to do.
So let's talk a little bit about blocking content, Professor Thomson, and also how young children will come to Dad and say, Dad, can I use your iPad, can I use your tablet, or whatever gadget? Now, ordinarily, I'm not going to block any content on my device for whatever reason. So how do we as parents handle that aspect? Sometimes it's about, okay, your son or daughter will have a specific password to log on and access. But generally, how should we be handling that potential challenge?
Well, yeah, it's a really important concept to say if we're using shared devices, we have to be very, very careful of what our kids can access. So even things like credit card details that might be stored on your phone or your laptop, if your kid goes online, there's been numerous incidents where kids have used the parents' credit card details to purchase items and things on wish lists that they would love to purchase for themselves. So we have to be very careful in terms of when sharing a device, when our kids go online, we need to know what it is they're doing. And there are safe spaces like YouTube Kids instead of YouTube, for example, that kids can use. There are safe browsers out there that, would block content. There are parental apps where you can go on and only allow certain sites that your kids can access. But it does require vigilance from us as well, because our kids, as you mentioned earlier, they're using the technology. They're on these devices. They're so adept at finding workarounds and finding ways to access beyond the restrictions that we have as well. So it takes us being very vigilant. It's difficult, often to say, monitoring everything your kid does. There are apps to do that as well. But, when your kid's on a device, look over their shoulder every now and then to see what it is they're accessing, what they've been able to access, and to make sure that it's still something that they should be accessing.
And I've promised my very final question. Where do we find you if we want to, as parents in particular, want to learn how to be able to protect our little ones?
Right. So you could visit the Nelson Mandela University webpage and look for CRICS, C-R-I-C-S, the Center for Research in Information and Cybersecurity. The contact details are there, and that will find, if you send an email to that address right there, to Amber, then it'll find our way to its way to the researchers as part of CRICS, and we'll very happily respond in terms of, material or advice or suggestions and what's necessary.
So look forward to that engagement. Professor Thomson, appreciate your time this afternoon.